Hey guys, it's Ingrid the Cussing Quilter again. Welcome my Cussarians, Cussarios, Custodians. Somebody come up with a good name, all right? Okay, today we're going to talk about some problems you encounter while you're hand quilting. I get a lot of questions about that. So, what to do in certain situations. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then I have one new product I want to show you. And something else, I forget, I'm old. But stay tuned. Alright. I hope y'all can see that. I'm filming by myself again. Alright, so the first problem that I could think of that you would encounter is not being able to pop your knot in. Like if you're working on popping your knot in and it won't go. Okay, first off, this is seam allowance here. So I try to get under the seam allowance. How big you make your knot all depends on how tight a weave your fabric is. Like for this white fabric here, it's really tight. So I have to put a smaller knot than if I would use regular quilting cotton. All right, so if you need to come through a seam allowance, try to go under the seam allowance, or you can, the seam allowance can help you. It can trap the knot in. So anyway, you come up, as I've stated in my hand quilting video, come up a little bit away from where you want to start. Okay, so if this knot, it'll go through, but let me make it a little bit bigger so we can have the actual problem, and still might not even keep it from going in, but all right, so this is a bigger knot. I'm not sure if it's gonna give me a problem or not, but you're going and it won't come in. Put your needle not under the thread, but in front of the thread, on top of the thread, and you got make a little heel right there, and you can pull it and it'll pop in. Okay, it gives you a little bit of something to pull against. And another problem, let me take that out, start over. Another problem you get, another way you could solve that problem is if you just got a big knot and it just won't even go if you do that, then what I do is put a little tension on here and put my needle in the hole of the knot. I know there's a shadow on there. And I do like this and make the hole a little bit bigger, and then it'll pop in. All right, so you all know, let me get my thimble together here, that I take a little tiny back stitch whenever I get to corners and when I start. Okay, so I take a little back stitch right here. Okay, and if you're quilting along and you just happen to make a big stitch and you've pulled this through and you don't want to take it out, a way to cheat, you can go back and go in the middle of that stitch and just keep going. Sometimes at the beginning, when it's hard to get started, if you're in a seam allowance or whatever, I do that. So it might look a little bit different, and on the bottom it will look different, but nobody's gonna be combing your quilt for that. If you're entered into a show or something like that, you might want to just pull your thread back and rethread it and do it right. Okay, so say you're going along. I'm not sure if I can make it happen, but I will try. Okay, you're going along quilting fine, and all of a sudden you need to make a knot to change your thread. And I do this a lot. I usually only do 2 knots, but I'm making it bigger so maybe it'll break. But say this right here was a seam allowance and you're going to pull your knot through and your thread breaks. Oh shoot, I couldn't even get it to break for me, but say it does break, right? Before you bury it. Don't leave that knot, even if the knot ends up on the top and your thread breaks, do not leave that knot. That's ugly, it's messy. Don't do it. You can cut that knot. Say that was a knot right there. Just cut your knot and then go back and take out the thread far enough. You don't have to take out the whole thing that you just did if you've gone a long way. And don't do it with scissors either. I usually use the butt of my needle. And I take it, now I'll have to take it all the way out because that was a very short seam. But say this was long enough, just take out long enough for you to be able to rethread it, tie another knot, and then bury your knot and then start again. Please don't leave that on top. I have done it and I'm not happy with it every time. I decide not to do it. And I get mad and then I'll end up going back when I see it later. Another problem you might come up on is if you're quilting different shapes, what you want to do is plan your route. Like if you're doing this, the way I'm quilting this flower is I'm going here, then I travel through the layers and go here, 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 travel through the layers, here, here, travel through the layers, here, here, travel through the layers, and to here. Now I can't quilt that way. I can't quilt backwards. So I tie my knot here and pop my knot in, and then I come over here and then I go here through the layers, up, down, through the layers, quilt here, down, through the layers, here, here. And then I travel through the layers and I go at the top of this circle and then around this way, and then I'm done with that. So I demonstrated this in my hand quilting tutorial, but I'll show you. You want to go, I did my little back stitch. You want to plan your route a little bit so you don't have to have so many knots in your work. And you don't have to have as many stops and starts. It slows you down when you have to do that. And the longer you can go without breaking your thread or tying off, I think it makes your quilt stronger and held together better. Alright, so I get to here. I'm going to do, it's like not a back stitch but a forward stitch. And I'm going to travel through the layers. And that means that you won't see this thread or needle on the bottom. You're inside the 3 layers. And you can feel whether the needle is coming through on the bottom or not. Okay, so I'm coming through like that. Change my thimble to my thumb. Take a little back stitch. So when you pull, it doesn't pull all the way to here and make this pucker. Little back stitch. Get that going. And don't worry about it. You know, if it's in a regular shape, don't worry about being exactly on the line unless it's a straight line. Straight lines you do want to pay attention, but who's gonna know when you get that marking off of that? Who's gonna know? Nobody. So don't stress out. You do want to, if it's a curved line, you do want to make sure it's a smooth curve, but don't stress over it. And when I get to the top of that, I'm going to do a little tiny back stitch every time I'm changing directions or at a corner or point or whatever. And when you pull, don't pull too tight. Sometimes you can't help it. Yeah. Alright, so you see I came unthreaded. That irritates me. Alright. I got it. That line wasn't going curvy anyway, so straighten up. Alright, one more time. Straighten that out a little bit. Okay, little back stitch. I'm going right before the end of that mark there. Come up through the layers so you don't see it. And then another little back stitch. Now, if you should be quilting along and all of a sudden you get to, oops, somewhere and you make a big stitch like that, before you push your needle all the way through, this is the best time to correct it. Just pull it back. You can feel, push up against your fingernail right here, but you want to make sure that the needle still goes through all the layers on every stitch, because if you don't, you're gonna be able to see it on the back, and the definition isn't as good if you're only going through the top and the batting on your stitches. What makes the stitches look the best is if you go straight down, straight across, and straight up. And then straight across, straight down, straight at 90-degree angles. But you're not going to be able to do that. The stitches on the back will look different than the stitches on the front, but they can still look good. Need to watch my quilting tutorial. This is a problems you encounter while quilting tutorial. All right, so I'm here to the seam allowance. I'm getting ready to go through the seam allowance. Sometimes, most times, you can't get a good stitch there because there's so much fabric. See, that stitch is bigger than the rest of my stitches, and I can't pull back. If I can't pull back to get a good stitch there, what I can do is they call it stab stitching. You pick the size of the stitch you want, push down, go straight down, and normally in quilting we don't do that. Pull that through and then use your finger on the bottom to find where you want to come up, and then come up. It's called stab stitching. Now, some people do a whole quilt that way. I don't know how in the hell they do that, because I never would make it through a quilt doing that. But that's what you do if you're going through some thick seams, or you're at points here that are real thick, or an intersection that you have to quilt through right here to go down, cross, and up all the way through. All right, next thing, when you're going around curves like this, usually when I'm quilting, a lot of people only take 2 stitches. They use smaller needles or whatever. I usually take a lot of stitches. 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I take 8 to 10 stitches, I guess, before I pull the needle through, but I use a size 7. That's a little bit bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now those stitches aren't as pretty, but like 10. I'm trying to get to this circle so I can show you something. This will make sense here in a sec. All right, made it to here, and I want to quilt this circle. Okay, so when you're not in a hoop, you have to quilt this direction, this direction, this direction, this direction, and that direction. You have to quilt all the directions in a circle. So when you have a circle this tight, you can't take that many stitches or your circle will not be smooth. So what I do is I start at the top or the bottom of the circle, and I'm going to take my little back stitch, and getting that first stitch going is sometimes a problem, but and I take like 2 stitches. That ain't, is that one's ugly. Take 2 stitches, come around, no more than like 3 right there, and move your chair. On that side I get more. See, I'm bending my needle up. That's me forcing a few more stitches. Usually 2 or 3 stitches in a curve is all you can get and still have a smooth circle. Now when you get to a point where this becomes, you're doing all this and this becomes uncomfortable, then you need to quilt in another direction. Move your chair and keep your chair in front of your work. Got 3 out of that one. Now I'm gonna move over a little bit more. Okay, now I get down to this one last little gap. I got enough space to put 1 more stitch in there. Well, what I've seen other people do is they will go ahead and do this and pull it on through, and then they'll make a knot and pull the knot back through that last stitch. And that makes sure that your back stitches, you don't have a little gap in your back stitches. Well, if you just tie a knot now and pull it through here, it'll look like you have all your stitches on top, but on the back you're gonna have a little gap. I don't care. Sometimes I do both. It's, you know, I'm not entering any contest with this quilt. It depends on the purpose of the quilt. Like, if I'm in the mood to be perfect, then I will put it back through the same hole. But see there, I'm messing up my knots. Now I got 2 knots. That's okay. I'm gonna just tie that. Go the stitch length away. And then pull that knot through. And you see, let me find my little thingamajiggy here we can see. This is just water in this little pin. So you can see that I have all my, it looks like there's no unbroken threads there. But on the back, I can assure you there's a little gap, a stitch length gap on the back. Let's see, what else do I want to tell y'all today? When you are cutting your thread here, I'm real careful at this point. Sometimes I just go like that. Now you can't cut your fabric if you don't activate your scissors. If you're doing this, you could cut your fabric. So I just kind of saw it. One problem that people have is in the beginning getting stitches even. Well, first off, you want to just realize that they're not going to be small and even. This is in traditional quilting. If you want them small and even, it'll take some time. So it only takes practice. So I'm going to show you how I get even stitches. Now, if you're doing big quilting, you want even stitches too now, because that's when they're pretty. All right, so go down, and as soon as you feel the needle on the bottom, don't go far, because you're going to have a big stitch when you come back up. This is just as soon as you feel it on the bottom, push up with your finger, rock it back, and as soon as you see it come up, like it's just barely, I don't know if y'all can see that on the camera or not, but as soon as I see the tip of the needle, when you're coming back up, when it comes up above the fabric, just imagine that you don't want to go past the pointy part that's slanted, and you poke back down. Okay, as soon as you feel it on the bottom, soon as you feel it, rock it back, and don't push. This part here, when you push, that governs how big your stitches are gonna be. Okay, as soon as you see that, you're down. So you're just really working with the pointy part of the needle. You don't worry about the shaft showing or anything. Barely coming up, barely going down, barely coming up, just that needle point just peeking barely. And I think that if you do more than one stitch at a time, your stitches are more even. When you're just doing one, for me, that first stitch after you pull the needle through, like I'm getting ready to start again right here, that's the hardest stitch length to gauge. Once I get it back up, hey, I'm going. And that's how I do it. Now showing y'all, they ain't that pretty, and then I got bearding, but that's how I do it. What else was I gonna show you? Okay, got a new tool that I wanted to show you guys. I mentioned this, not this tool, but I mentioned marking tools. This is my favorite chalk pencil. This is a water-soluble pencil by Clover, and they do rub off as you work. Now, for me, that's a plus because I don't like my markings to stay on. That's why I have that little water thing and that spray bottle. I don't want the markings to stay on. I want to see what the stitches look like. For me, them wiping off as I go, that's a plus. When I'm quilting and I've marked all this, I'll go from this way to this way because I'm right-handed, of course. As I go, my hand wipes off the markings. So when I get to where I'm going, it's fine, but not this blue stuff. So these tips are kind of soft and you have to sharpen them often. And a lot of people don't like that. So I thought I would research some other kinds, some white markers for dark fabric. And I hope y'all can see that right there. A little bit darker. All right, so this is a fine tip marker, Bowen, I think that's how you say it. You don't have to sharpen it because it's like a mechanical pencil, like that. And it comes with these refills in here, but they are pretty fragile, so you can't push them out very long. And they don't, look at that. So if you don't like stuff to rub off, it's not gonna rub off easy. It does come off, but not as easy. Let me see, where is that? If I had this here, the tip is bigger if you don't sharpen, but it wears down really quick. See how easy that went off? And this also has a little eraser on it. I don't think it works all that great, but I mean, it does work. But so you might want to try that. I'm liking it actually when it's not breaking. If I make it come out too long, it breaks, and that kind of ticks me off. So then I'll put it down. But I like it. It's working for me. I would give it a 4. I haven't found the perfect marking pen yet, but for a dark fabric, but yeah. All right, so now the last thing that's a problem. Now, y'all, come in close and look at me in these crooked eyes I got. Pay attention. The last problem could be you. People are so afraid to try new things. Now, I want to tell you something personal without telling you exactly what happened. But I had a really traumatic experience back in 2015. I had not started back up quilting again. And it made me think about how mortal I was and how little time we all have left to do what we want to do. So I thought about it, and I was knitting at the time, and I was so afraid to try socks. And the reason was because I had heard so many people saying that it was really hard. So I never tried it. I was so afraid to try knitting a sock. Well, after this traumatic event, I decided, what do I have to lose? So I watched a lot of YouTube videos, found what I thought was a good video, and I did it. And guess what? It was nothing. I did it with no problems. Everything was fine. I was scared for nothing. Same thing with watercolor. I also watercolor. I was scared for nothing. And at this same year, I decided I'm going to do that too. So I went and bought $15 worth of watercolor equipment, some cheap paper, cheap brushes, cheap watercolor paints. I did that too. I'll show you a picture at the end, one of them anyway. I was afraid for nothing again. What's the worst that could happen if you hand quilt and it doesn't go the way you want? You take that shit out. It's just thread and fabric. The world's not going to come to an end. Start with a little piece of scrap fabric. So if you mess it up, if you're so worried about messing it up, just choose raggedy, ugly fabric in a small piece and do it. Do it without a hoop. You can do it without a frame. You don't have to have an expensive piece of equipment, needle and thread. Okay? I don't want to hear another person saying, one of these days I'm going to get the courage to hand quilt. What are you waiting on? Don't wait. I'm here to tell you it's not that hard. And I grew up, nobody ever told me I couldn't do something. So every time I started something on my own, it's because something sparked my creativity. And I decided that I was just going to do it. I was just going to do it. And I always picked the hardest shit. And it all worked out fine. All I had to do was stay with it and practice. And, you know, if nobody tells you you can't, then you just go for it. I'm telling you that you can do it. So please just start. Start where you are. Bloom where you're planted. Get rolling, please. Just do it. It's so rewarding. And then if you don't like it, you don't ever have to do it again. All right. Bye.